Welcome to Will It Work? I'm Kevin. Today we're looking at the NEC PCFX. This was the final console from NEC. Basically, they had started with the PC Engine / Turbo Graphics, and then they had tried to have a successor system to that, which ended up being the Super Graphics, which was one of the very first consoles we looked on this series. I think it was the second one we looked at. That didn't go well for them. I don't know. They didn't market it. I don't know if they even wanted to sell it. It was a weird launch. It didn't go well. So they had come out with a CD-ROM for the Turbo Graphics / PC Engine. And they also released a sort of all-in-one system called a Turbo Duo, which we'll look at or have looked at, depending on when I put these together in this series. And that had some minor, updates overall. And they released 3 different versions of that, ending with a Turbo Duo RX, which included some additional RAM. And but ultimately, if you had the right cards, every Turbo Graphics with a CD could play all of the CD games as well as some of the arcade games. So at that point, when we're going into the 32-bit era, they decided to come out with the PCFX. And basically NEC decided to double down on the 2D gaming, which is what some of the manufacturers of consoles attempted to do, because they didn't think that 3D was ready. We saw that from Commodore with the CD32. We saw that with basically the early days of, or basically all of the Sega Saturn. The Saturn managed to do 3D because it just had enough horsepower that it could pull it off. But in this case, the PCFX does not. It has a stronger processor. It's called like the King processor, from what I understand. And it had a lot of 2D graphical effects that it could use, a lot of background layers and more full-featured colored sprites and everything. But it was not on the level of the Sega Saturn, and it couldn't do 3D for the most part. So, it never got outside of Japan. It made about, I don't know, close to 100 games for it overall. And then they just kind of, put it away, and NEC left the gaming world. It's kind of a shame, really, because they could have just thrown in some sort of 3D processor into this and taken it to that level, and it might have been competitive. There wasn't really a lot else going on. I mean, you had Nintendo coming out with the N64, but that was cartridge based, and it had its own technical limitations due to some very slow RAM. And so, you just had Sony out there and Sega. But I guess NEC just didn't want to compete anymore in this space. Maybe they just weren't making the money that they kind of wanted to. And I don't know, you kind of look at Japan in general during the 32-bit era. And for the most part, they didn't jump on to getting a lot of 3D games out there. I mean, for the most part, it was first-party stuff from Sony and Sega and Nintendo, and I think a lot of that was probably even Western developers doing it. Most of the Japanese companies like Bandai that worked with NEC on the PCFX, but many others were still doing 2D RPGs, 2D battle simulator type things. They kind of were into these sort of storybook type games, etc. And a lot of the manga and anime doesn't really lend itself, especially at that time, to 3D. And so, the popularity of that being very strong in Japan made a lot more sense for it to be in the 2D space. But, the overall market worldwide was moving towards 3D gaming, although most of it at that time was not very good. But gamers still were like, you know, this is the future. I want to buy a PlayStation. I want to buy a Nintendo 64 or possibly a Sega Saturn. PCFX just wasn't in the race. So we'll take a look at it here. Now, I will say that I don't have any purchased games for this. They all sell for quite a bit of money, especially because they have to be exported. And so I have some discs from the Redump project, and we'll give them a shot and see how they work. You know, it's possible that this unit also may need to get its belts changed out for the CD-ROM, but it does work. And we'll just look at some of the games that it has, etc. I am using a step-down transformer with this one. Usually, systems can manage with Japanese systems can manage just fine with our 120 volts, but sometimes with older systems, because of the timing that they use, where they're using the electrical waveform to do things, and might make sense, you know, to run it out at Japan's 100 volts instead. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with this one to see if it maybe smooths things out a little bit. But mostly I think we'll run into just some issues with CDRs. Because, you know, this was at a time when CD-ROMs were kind of finicky about what they wanted to work with, etc. And CDRs had all different types of blanks and issues and things, and until they got it down into, you know, a good clean format. And so, you know, more than likely the drive wasn't tuned, the laser wasn't tuned to work with those. But we'll find out. We'll see. I know that some of them will definitely work, but we may run into some bumps. So let's switch over to the video side, and you know, we'll take a look more at what the PCFX was capable of doing. Here we go. Okay. Looking at the PCFX. Now, I am trying to load some games up out of the Redump project, like I mentioned. Whether they'll work or not, we'll see. There was an actual redump of English translated games. There's about 10 in there. I took a few of them out. We'll see if they load, etc. System can be pretty picky about the CDs, but it does seem to recognize them, and I have gotten some of them to work. But the games that I selected from the Japanese ones, even though highly rated, were basically very difficult to even figure out and play. So this one here is Battle Heat. And you'll notice that the streaming is a bit choppy. I think that's probably either because the lens is a little dirty or the belt needs to be changed out. It may be the belt, and that's probably something that I should look into doing. But one of the things that the PCFX was strong with was the fact that it could do 30 frames per second JPEG with audio, which made it actually more powerful in terms of full motion video than any of the other consoles. It wasn't enough for it to be thrown over the, you know, versus what was capable on the other systems. They could do stuff that was a bit grainier, you know, less colorful, etc. But it worked out for them. But for the NEC, you know, PCFX, it definitely could do really nice video. Unfortunately, you don't get a full example of that here due to the either the CDR, the lens, or the belts, etc. But let's see if we can skip forward to the game. So this looks like it's probably a fighter. If I recall, this is like a full motion video fighter as well, so it's probably going to be basically unplayable. I'm not even sure how you do this. Like you're pulling off moves or something, but it's like all with like anime style video segments or something. Really reminiscent of early 3DO titles like that Warrior game. for very late Commodore 64 WWF wrestling. Like, I have no idea how you're supposed to even... I think it's just like a matter of pulling off special moves or something. Just get my ass kicked. Okay, so we get the idea on this one. This is rubbish. Let's move on. That was Battle Heat. Yeah, not great. Let's see, not that one. Now, this is not backwards compatible with Turbo Graphics. That is also unfortunate. I can't imagine that the processing power in the Turbo Graphics would have been that hard to put inside this unit and create some sort of switchover. They probably could have done a little bit better in terms of sales had they included that hardware, because at that point the hardware was so old. I mean, you've got to think that the Turbo Graphics came out in the 8-bit era, even though it's an 16-bit system. And, you know, they carried that for quite a long time before they got to the 32-bit era. So that hardware had to have been relatively inexpensive. So Godfighter Zeroigar. Let's see if this video works any better. And so it's basically doing a compressed JPEG, and then it's able to decompress it in real time using its processor. So at the time, again, nobody else was able to do this. Some people had like full motion video units that you could connect to it, like the Saturn, that would enable you to get full like VCD type support. CD32 did that, CDI did that, etc. But the base system being able to do it, not really. All right, let's hit run. Anime mode or battle mode? Let's just do battle mode. I've had enough of the anime. Let's start a new battle. Choose the zone. Let's just start with zone 1, man. Demon in the deep ocean. Rock on. Let's get to what are we doing? Let's get to that. Looks like a shmup. Whoa. Oh my goodness. Some shmups are really cool, but you know, I never really got into them. They're like they just get so, you know, ridiculously hard that like here, that, you know, it just comes down to learning patterns. And I never really got, you know, never really got into video games for pattern, you know, memorization. I know it sounds weird, but if you really think about it, a lot of video games are all about memorizing patterns and just trying to then, you know, execute those patterns repeatedly. And yeah, I don't know, man. That just didn't really appeal to me. So, you know, I always kind of liked the freedom to explore things on my own. And, yeah. Anyway, obviously rubbish at that and don't feel like studying it, etc. Yeah, I just kind of, you know, wanted to get more into, like, so I liked RPGs, I like tactical war games and things. Although with tactical war games, I didn't like the Panzer General type series where, again, you had to do things very specifically in order to advance. So you didn't have a lot of room for free, like, decision making. And yeah, I just kind of, you know, less pattern, more, little more open-ended type gaming. So not a lot to choose from in the 8-bit era, but there were some things, you know. And sometimes, you know, sometimes you just play the games because you want to do you'll do the pattern matching, etc. But all right, so this is, I don't know. It's that. Whatever that is. Oh, got a read error. Probably just as well. Except the run button. Let's see if we can bypass that. This is like, not sure what this is. Come on, you can do it. You can do it, Turbo. Or PCFX. Press run button. Run. This joystick isn't terrible. D-pad with 6 buttons. No bumpers. Got the usual switches. I don't know. We'll go with the top one. Chip chat. It's real Japanese, ain't it? It really is. All of this is. It's rich. Japan rich. Nothing wrong with that. Just saying. This is definitely a Japanese game console. That's what I'm saying. All right, can we get past this? I don't know what we're doing. I don't want the whole background. It's going to be all in Japanese anyway. Little kids' voices. We don't know what's going on. Just get to the game part. See what that's like. Weird, childish, kiddie things. I don't know what's going on. People need hobbies over there or something. Stage 1, let's go. Let's do it. Stage 1, yeah. Woo! Load times, love them. Black screen. Probably could have used like a progress bar or something. More of this. Let's hit run. None of that. There's like no English games for this system too. I mean, I guess that goes without saying. It's purely Japanese, but sometimes, you know, you can switch around English, Japanese. No, all Japan, all. What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I trying? What am I trying to accomplish? Well, I gotta kick these things. And then they turn into candy. Oh, there's a balloon. The balloon? No, the balloon's just there. Oh, what's that? It's like a bat person or something. Oh my god. What's going on with this game? Yep. So, really, there's a lot of RPGs and type stuff mixed in with manga and things for the PCFX. But if you haven't really seen a lot of PCFX, this kind of gives you an example of why that is. There's just not a lot of games on here for like Western audiences. There's not a lot of things that people remember fondly about it, etc. There, you know, there were titles. It's just that it didn't do so well in the market. But you know, some people would import one, and because they knew Japanese, they got into it, etc. But just kind of an under-realized system that probably, you know, had it had more time and more development, they could have squeezed more power out of it and made some really good games. And it would have been interesting to see how it would have done in you know, with Western audiences with some development activity on it, but it just didn't go there. So NEC PCFX, it works. It's a keeper. Like I said, I don't know if it's CDRs. I mean, I wish I had like a store, you know, bought game, etc. for it, because then I could see if it's actually just because the CDRs are the problem or not. But overall, it does work. It's a keeper. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.